You didn't fall in love. You recognized someone, the person who felt like home, whose absence now feels like a wound. That person didn't arrive in your life by accident. Something deep inside you had been waiting for them. Not waiting for something good, waiting to complete an old, unfinished story. Think about someone who wasn't quite available, or ran hot and cold. Someone brilliant and difficult. Someone you had to earn over and over again. Someone who made you feel electric and invisible at the same time. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. Did that feeling, that specific flavor of longing, feel new? Or did it feel like something you had always known? There is a pattern written into you. Not on paper, not in journals or therapy notes. It's written somewhere older than all of that, before you had language for it, before you understood what love was supposed to feel like, before anyone explained love could be consistent, warm, and safe, or that it didn't have to come with this ache attached to it. Carl Jung called it the imago, the internal image of love we construct in childhood, from the people who were supposed to love us first. Not an image of who they actually were, but an emotional blueprint, a fingerprint of feeling, a template your nervous system carries into every relationship. And here is the quiet devastation of it. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between love and familiar pain. It only knows what home feels like. If home was uncertain, you learn to love uncertainty. If home was cold, you learn to find warmth in those rare moments when the cold broke. If home required you to be small or perfect or endlessly patient or endlessly understanding, you learn to build your love life around performing those same things. You didn't choose this. That is the most important sentence in this entire video. You didn't choose this, but you have been living it. Picture a child, maybe 6 years old. They have learned something no child should have to learn. They have learned that love is conditional. It arrives when they are good enough, quiet enough, or needed enough. Or maybe love arrived unpredictably. Warmly one afternoon, distantly the next morning. So this child does what every brilliant surviving human creature does. They adapt. They become hypervigilant. They learn to read the room. They learn to feel the temperature of another person's mood. They become experts at managing emotions, other people's emotions specifically. Because once, a very long time ago, managing those emotions was the only way to stay safe. They also learn something else. They learn to associate love with effort, with earning, with proving. They learn that love is not a given. It's a reward. And so they grow up with this unconscious belief, buried so deeply, they'd never call it a belief at all. They'd call it just how things are. The belief is this: I have to work for love, or I will lose it. And then they grow up, and they fall in love with someone who requires that exact kind of work. And it feels like chemistry, like fate, like recognition, because it is recognition. The nervous system, brilliant and loyal to its earliest programming, is saying, this is familiar, this is legible, this is love in the language I first learned to speak. You wonder why you feel most alive in the uncertain ones, why stability feels suspicious or even suffocating, why the person who loves you clearly and consistently somehow fails to grip you the way the ambiguous ones do. You wonder why you apologize for things you didn't do, why your instinct in conflict is to make yourself smaller, why you can feel the emotional shift in a room the moment you enter it, like a sixth sense that exhausts you but never quiets down. You wonder why you're so afraid of being a burden, why asking for what you need feels like dangerous exposure, why you monitor the reactions of people you love with the precision of someone diffusing something fragile. You wonder why love for you always seems to arrive twisted with anxiety, why you can't seem to separate closeness from the fear of losing it. These aren't personality flaws. They aren't proof that you're broken or dramatic or too much. They are symptoms of brilliant survival. Every single one of them was, once, an intelligent response to a situation a child had no power to change. You became who you needed to become, to navigate an emotional environment that was not designed to be navigated. The tragedy is that the tools that saved you then are the very tools that wound you now. Here's what no one says out loud. You didn't fall in love with people who hurt you because something is wrong with you. You fell in love with them because they activated the deepest, most primal part of your emotional wiring, because your nervous system, still loyal to its first lessons, recognized in them the particular shape of love it was taught to expect. The shape that says, if you just try harder, if you just love more, if you just become enough, this time it will work. You have been trying to complete an old story, returning to the emotional scene of your earliest wound. Not to suffer, but to finally win. To prove at last that you are lovable, that you are worth staying for, that the people who couldn't give you consistent love were simply the wrong people. And this new person, this familiar feeling person, will be the one who finally confirms what you've been waiting decades to hear. This is what psychologists call repetition compulsion. Freud named it, but you have lived it. It is not weakness. It is a profound act of hope, but it is hope aimed at the wrong target. Because the confirmation you are looking for, that you are worthy, that you are enough, that you deserve love that doesn't require suffering, that confirmation cannot come from outside. It never could. The wound was never really about those people. It was always about the ones who came first. There is a version of you that existed before all of this, before you learned that love was something to be earned, before you understood that the people around you had moods that required management, needs that required sacrifice, absences that required your silence. That version of you knew something simple and extraordinary, that you were worth loving simply because you existed, not because of what you did, not because of how well you performed or how little space you took up, or how gracefully you held yourself together, simply because you were here. That knowledge, that original, pre-language, cellular knowledge, it didn't disappear. It got buried, covered over by years of learned behavior and protective mechanism and carefully constructed identity. But it is still there. It is the part of you that flinches when someone dismisses your pain. It is the part of you that knows, somewhere beneath the apology and the shrinking, that you deserved better. It is the part of you that kept watching, kept hoping, kept returning, because it remembered distantly that love was supposed to feel different than this. The philosopher Alain de Botton writes that we fall in love partly because we recognize in another person a familiar kind of suffering. We feel understood at the level of our deepest wound. But what if you could be understood at the level of your deepest wholeness instead? What if the recognition you have been chasing in other people is actually a recognition that belongs to you? A remembering of who you were before the world taught you to be afraid. This is not the part where someone gives you a list. There are no steps here, no instructions, no clean, clinical pathway from the person you became to the person you might be. What there is this. The moment you see the pattern, something shifts. Not dramatically, but quietly, the way dawn shifts the dark. You begin to see the script for what it is, not destiny, not truth, a story, an early, urgent, brilliantly authored story, written by a child who needed to survive and did, but a story nonetheless. And stories, unlike wounds, can be rewritten, not overnight, not without grief, because there is grief in this real grief for the child who adapted when they should have been held, for the years spent chasing the shape of love that was always going to disappoint you, for all the ways you made yourself smaller, to fit inside spaces that were never built for your full size. Let yourself feel that grief. It is not self-pity, it is honesty. And on the other side of it, not past it, not above it, but through it, there is something that has been waiting for you longer than any person ever did. A different kind of love. One that doesn't require you to earn it. One that begins, it always begins, with the terrifying, revolutionary, quietly radical act of believing that you were never the problem. You were always the one worth staying for. You just needed to hear it in a language you could trust. And now, finally, slowly, you're beginning to speak it yourself.